Happy Wednesday. And let's see, the breaking news, and I say that in air quotes, on Monday was that the House Oversight Committee has released bank records showing that contrary to his claims that he didn't profit from his son's business dealings, President Biden did indeed receive direct payments from one of Hunter's businesses starting back in September of 2018 when he was vice president.
No
And
way. That's
shocking.
shocking. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it.
I'm still trying to process it myself. But these bank records were obtained through the subpoenas that they had issued for the personal and business accounts of Hunter and James Biden. And according to House Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, quote, payments from Hunter Biden's business entity to Joe Biden are now part of a pattern revealing Joe Biden knew about, participated in, and benefited from his family's influence peddling schemes, end quote. So the committee has only released one bank statement, and it shows a payment of like $1,380, which, okay, it doesn't seem like that much, especially since his family has embezzled like fucking billions of dollars. But there's reportedly like an ACH authorization agreement showing that direct deposit was set up for these monthly payments that were starting September 15th of 2018. And I guess an aide for the Oversight Committee stated there's evidence that at least 3 payments were made to Joe Biden on September 17th, October 15th, and November 15th in 2018. So all of these payments were from a business entity called Owasco PC, which is the company, corporation, whatever, that Hunter Biden set up for all of his shady business dealings in China, Ukraine, Romania, and wherever else he was fucking embezzling money from. So this is the same account that Hunter is reportedly under investigation for by the DOJ for tax evasion and a myriad of other crimes. According to the Washington Free Beacon, Owasco PC received nearly $5 million from the Chinese energy firm CEFC in 2017 and 2018. And we've got Hunter and his team claiming that these payments to his dad were for a vehicle loan. So I feel like, honestly, why are we bothering to talk about this, quote, breaking news, considering what we've known for like well over a year now that Biden was extensively involved in Hunter's foreign business dealings. There's evidence on Hunter's laptop. There were the former business partners that came forward with information and testified that Biden was involved. There's been IRS whistleblowers. There's the evidence of text messages from Hunter threatening one of the CEFC guys and talking about his father wanting to know why the commitment hasn't been filled. There's all the big guy, texts and information out there. And there's probably even more evidence in Biden's garage or in an old office in one of the numerous piles of classified documents he was in possession of that we still don't know anything about. And yet nothing's been done about any of it. And I read in the New York Post that James Comer had a closed door meeting with Republican lawmakers. And he, in that meeting, said that the Biden administration has only produced about 14 pages of an 82,000 pages worth of emails that Biden sent or received under all those pseudonyms, which we've talked about in a previous episode, during the 8 years that he was vice president. Now you've got the White House counsel spokesperson, Ian Sams, who is insisting that Biden has cooperated with all the document requests from Congress. He's provided more than 35,000 pages of private financial records and more than 2,000 pages of Treasury Department financial reports. And House Speaker Mike Johnson told Fox News this past Saturday the Republicans are now even closer to holding a formal vote to launch an impeachment inquiry into President Biden, and that this vote is expected to happen before the House takes its holiday break on December 15th. But as I said, why? I don't see this going anywhere, Stephanie, do you?
No, it's definitely not going to go anywhere. And, they may secure the votes for impeachment. Okay. But then, what's the point of that? You know what I mean? Because that the DOJ isn't going to do anything. The Senate's not going to be on board. So it's all, again, it's all just a show. But I do want to play a clip from James Comer because I feel like he did a really good job of summarizing what they have so far and how all of the pieces of the puzzle are coming together to make a really solid case. So I want to play this and then we'll kind of like go from there.
Joe Biden claimed there was an absolute wall between his official government duties and his family's influence peddling schemes. This was a lie. President Joe Biden claimed his family didn't receive money from China. This was a lie. President Joe Biden claimed he never spoke to his son, Hunter Biden, about the Biden's family's shady business dealings. This was a lie. Now, Hunter Biden's legal team and the White House's media allies claim Hunter's corporate entities never made payments directly to Joe Biden. We can officially add this latest talking point to the list of lies. Today, the House Oversight Committee is releasing subpoenaed bank records that show Hunter Biden's business entity, Owasco PC, made direct monthly payments to Joe Biden. This wasn't a payment from Hunter Biden's personal account, but an account for his corporation that received payments from China and other shady corners of the world. At this moment, Hunter Biden is under an investigation by the Department of Justice for using Owasco PC for tax evasion and other serious crimes. And based on whistleblower testimony, we know the Justice Department made a concerted effort to prevent investigators from asking questions about Joe Biden. I wonder why. The more we learn, it appears the Justice Department was trying to cover up for the Bidens until brave IRS whistleblowers came forward and a federal judge rejected the sweetheart plea deal. Payments from Hunter's business entity to Joe Biden are now part of a pattern revealing Joe Biden knew about, participated in, and benefited from his family's influence peddling schemes. When Joe Biden was vice president, he spoke by phone, attended dinners, and had coffee with his son's foreign business associates. He allowed his son to catch a ride on Air Force Two at least a dozen times to sell the Biden brand around the world. Hunter Biden requested office keys to be made for his office mate, Joe Biden, in space he planned to share with a Chinese energy company. We've revealed how Joe Biden received checks from his family that were funded by the Biden's influence peddling schemes with China, no less. The House Oversight Committee continues to investigate Joe Biden's involvement in his family's domestic and international business schemes at a rapid pace. We will continue to uncover the facts and provide transparency about the findings of our investigation. President Biden and his family must be held accountable for this blatant corruption. The American people expect no less.
Okay, so first of all, the start of that clip where he's like, we determined this was a lie and that was a lie totally reminds me of like those 90s talk shows where it's like, and the lie detector test determines that was a lie. You are not the father.
Oh my God, I used to watch those. And I have to say, totally, like, not even relevant, but I love his Southern drawl.
Me too. I know. You just like him. Like you hear him
Mhm.
talking and you're like, oh, he just sounds like so trustworthy.
Yes.
But so I watched a lot of clips of him doing like various interviews, and you brought up the car loan, the supposed car loan, right? And like he was saying that with all of these different things that they've been caught with, they always say, "Oh, it was a loan. It was a loan. It was a loan." And he's like, "Okay, where are the loan documents?" And they can't provide any loan documents. So what he was saying is he's like, "Okay, first of all, we know it wasn't a loan. Like they're making that up, but let's just give them the benefit of doubt and say it was a loan." Well, it's tax evasion then because they weren't paying taxes on this. They weren't reporting it. So it's like either way, like they're criminals, you know? Not that anything's going to come of it, but it's just like so obvious. They have all the evidence. Um, and so one of the interviews that James Comer was on, he was saying that we may see more things coming out next week. So that I felt like he was really hinting around that there's something else that's going to be revealed. So we'll, obviously let you guys know of that when that comes out. But they also are going to hold the hearing where they're going to ask Hunter Biden questions under oath. And during one of the interviews that Comer was on with Fox News, he was asked like point blank what we were just saying. He's like, how is this any different from all the other times they said that they had evidence on Biden taking bribes? And he said that the difference this time is that with this whole impeachment inquiry, it allowed them to build a rock solid case and get all the evidence and the documentation and the witnesses to back it up. And so now he fully believes that they do have the votes for an impeachment. And like even the holdouts, like the Republican holdouts that were against it, he said are going to vote for it because at this point they're getting all kinds of public scrutiny from their constituents on why Biden hasn't been impeached yet. And then Speaker Mike Johnson also said that the White House is preventing 3 DOJ witnesses from coming forward. So the impeachment process could help the House move forward with like that particular part of the investigation with those witnesses. So again, it's like, that's great, but why does it matter? Like I feel like it's all just a waste of time at this point because there's going to be no justice or no outcome. I mean, we know the DOJ is not going to go after Biden. I mean, here Mike Johnson just said they are like keeping these witnesses from coming forward. And I feel like it's all just something that's going to keep everyone distracted and entertained as this whole global agenda plays out and they push us closer and closer into World War III, you know?
Yep.
So speaking of World War III, now we have another country that is pushing buttons, and that's North Korea. And what happened was they launched a satellite that was in direct violation of UN bans. So North Korea argues that it has sovereign rights to launch spy satellites and test flight ballistic missiles to cope with what it calls US-led military threats. So these spy satellites apparently did get images of like the White House and the Pentagon. And according to an AOL article, the spy satellites are one of many high-tech weapon systems that Kim Jong-un has publicly pledged to introduce. And he said that North Korea needs several spy satellites to better monitor its rivals' moves and bolster the precision-guided missile strike capability against enemy targets. Great. And according to another article from the AP News, Kim Jong-un's sister dismissed U.S. calls for a return to diplomacy. And she was basically saying they're going to do more launches that are, they're in direct violation of the UN bans and basically like they don't give a shit. Of course, she didn't say that. I'm paraphrasing. And then according to a Daily Express article, North Korea has warned that any attempts by the US to interfere with its newly launched spy satellite would be considered an act of war. That's not comforting.
No, it certainly isn't. But the defense minister of North Korea put out a statement saying, quote, countless spy satellites of the US flying above the Korean peninsula every day should be deemed the primary targets to be destroyed by the armed forces of the DPRK, end quote, which is the Democratic People's Republic of China. So on one hand, like, yes, they're violating UN bans, but they're doing what other countries are doing. So I see their argument. Official North Korean state media is reporting that this spy satellite launch is the start of a newly formed military intelligence agency that is going to start reporting all of the information it acquires to the Reconnaissance Bureau of the Army and other major military units. And side note, I don't know how valid this is, but I read an article in a publication called DL News that back in 2022, North Korean hackers stole enough crypto to fund almost half of the country's military budget. So there was research done by an independent threat intelligence program called Recorded Future. And their report stated that North Korea has stolen about $3 billion in crypto since 2017, and 1.7 billion of that was in 2022 alone, which they refer to as, quote, a sum equivalent to approximately 5% of North Korea's economy or 45% of its military budget, end quote. So, you know, they're funding their war with stolen money or their military. And a military commentator from North Korea is saying that, like I said before, this satellite launch is justified because other countries are doing it. And he referenced how South Korea just launched its first military reconnaissance satellite on Saturday on Elon Musk's SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket from Vandenberg Air Force Base in California. And the Independent reported that the North Korean military is also claiming that they launched their spy satellite into orbit on November 21st. And as you referenced earlier, they already have detailed pictures of major target regions, quote, such as the White House, the Pentagon, and Air Force bases along the US Northeast coast and its Pacific territory of Guam, end quote. And Stephanie, I'm sure that whatever satellite imagery they don't have, they can strike some kind of deal with China and get it, since we've already allowed Chinese spy balloons to travel across the United States for days on end earlier this year. And I'm sure they'd be happy to do some kind of trade.
Yeah. Well, and I just want to point out that so back when Trump took office as the president, Obama told him that the biggest threat to the United States was North Korea. And so Trump had asked him, okay, so what have the conversations been like with Kim Jong-un? And Obama said there hasn't been any. Trump's like, are you kidding me? Like, this is the biggest threat. You haven't even reached out to the guy. And so we all remember, like, he did reach out to the guy and he got to know him and talk with him. And we had diplomacy. They weren't threatening us. And now look at this. They're like threatening World War III. So I just want to bring that up again because it's like everything they said that Trump was going to do is happening under the Biden administration. So it's like I feel like every week there's a new threat that we have to deal with. But anyhow, since you had brought up China, I have to mention the day that we recorded the episode on the child pneumonia outbreak in China. Well, I guess it was the day after I started seeing articles that, yep, it's here in the United States, just like we said it probably was. And US doctors are reporting a spike in child pneumonia cases. The health department issued a press statement. And according to the statement, the number of pneumonia cases in Ohio is above the county average. Schools across the district are seeing a surge in pediatric pneumonia cases. Notably, the average age of those affected by the disease is 8 years. And the main types of pathogens that they're saying are causing the outbreak have been identified as streptococcus pneumonia, adenovirus, and then that mycoplasma pneumonia, which is also called white lung because that's where the lungs appear white in x-rays. So while that sounds really scary, it's also known as walking pneumonia, meaning it's mild enough that people can continue normal activities with it. There seems to be a lot of conflicting reports, but the most recent one that I could find was actually on Yahoo News. And it said that health officials in the state of Ohio have warned that the outbreak is not linked to China's, meaning the strains seen by Ohio doctors are not spreading from country to country. So, I mean, I don't know what to believe because I certainly don't trust the media or the government to be forthcoming, especially after their utter failure with COVID. And to me, it just seems like too big of a coincidence that China and the US both have a spike in childhood white lung pneumonia, and it's among the same exact age range, and it's not linked. Like that just seems like a stretch to me.
Yeah, and it's like we talked about last week, the fact that China is encouraging visa-free travel with multiple countries during an outbreak of this mysterious illness is highly suspect. And I also want to say that, like, obviously no one's talked about anything but COVID over the last, 3 years, and all of these other illnesses still existed. I've had walking pneumonia before, not as a child, but as an adult. Um, People still got the flu, they still got pneumonia, they still got cold. So yes, all of this stuff has been around and just not talked about for the last few years, but it's the fact that they keep referring to mysterious strains and unknown origin and all this other like weird shit. So no, I don't trust any of it. And on top of that, if that's not enough, the Daily Caller reported on Monday that the WHO has announced an outbreak of influenza A. And what that is H1N1, otherwise known as the swine flu. And this is
Great.
happening, yeah, this is happening in Great Britain and Northern Ireland. And it's apparently a strain never before seen in humans. So perhaps we have this to look forward to as a new pandemic if the white lung virus doesn't take us out first. Or, according to the White House, it might be war with Russia that takes us out if we don't continue to give money to Ukraine. So there was a press conference earlier this week where the White House issued a very grave warning to Congress that if they fail to pass legislation by the end of the year to continue funding Ukraine, Russia is going to win the war. So let's listen to this clip from White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan.
I want to ask a question about Ukraine. Are you saying that any member of Congress who votes against aid to Ukraine is voting for Putin?
I believe that any member of Congress who does not support funding for Ukraine is voting for an outcome that will make it easier for Putin to prevail. That is, a vote against supporting Ukraine is a vote to improve Putin's strategic position. That's just an inescapable reality. That's not speaking to someone's motive, why they chose to vote against it. That's just speaking to the outcome of their vote. A vote against supplemental funding for Ukraine will hurt Ukraine and help Russia. It will hurt democracy and help dictators. And we think that that is not the right lesson of history, and that every member, Democrat and Republican, should vote to support this.
So this is all having to do with the Office of Management and Budget Director, Shalonda Young. She sent a letter to the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, a couple days ago stating, quote, "I want to be clear. Without congressional action by the end of the year, we will run out of resources to procure more weapons and equipment for Ukraine and to provide equipment from U.S. military stocks. There is no magical pot of funding available to meet this moment. We are out of money and nearly out of time," end quote. Well, I'm just going to give my personal thoughts because you know what, Shalonda, there's no magical pot of funds for all the citizens of the United States who are struggling to make ends meet and take care of their families in the wake of your failed Bidenomics bullshit. And there's no magical pot of funds, it seems, to protect our border from attack. So until we actually start taking care of our own people and get back to like an America First agenda, I don't think we should be sending any more money to Ukraine. We have sent them fucking billions and billions of dollars. It's been 2 years. They're barely maintaining. At what point do we take care of our own fucking country, especially with the threat of our border being invaded, internal terrorist attacks, war with China, threats from fucking North Korea? Like, we are literally being walked into World War III by our government.
Yeah.
And all the focus is on continuing to fund fucking Ukraine.
Right. Right. And it's like, once again, it's like the writing, it's right there. Biden is compromised. I mean, it's plain and simple. And we can't keep giving that funding because we're not going to be able to protect our own country with all these threats that are out there, just like you said. And not to mention, it's like, I don't know why people aren't talking more about all of these young people that are dying because Ukraine refuses to admit that they've lost. Like, they're now drafting men who are like 45 and older because they've gone through all this younger generation. It's just like absolute insanity. And I really hope that we don't fund it. But again, I feel like they always end up getting what they want. So I don't hold out much hope at all.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's everything going on in the world at this very moment. We'll have a lot more probably on Friday. So thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.